Discover how past lives, dreams, and soul travel can help you step out of the crowd and master your spiritual destiny. If you would like to discover spiritual truth through past lives, dreams, and soul travel, then call 1-800-LOVE-GOD and receive your free copy of Eckankar, Ancient Wisdom for Today.
What you're listening to is thousands of people singing Hugh, an ancient name for God, which you can sing as a love song or prayer song to God, which allows for greater spiritual guidance, protection, healing, and direct spiritual experiences with the light and sound of God.
This is called the making of a spiritual movement.
I have to admit it's caused quite a controversy.
Why the controversy? What do you do in this book that everybody's so upset about? Are you talking about a particular cult now?
Right. It's called Eckankar, and it was founded in San Diego, and it's well known throughout the United States and throughout the world.
I used to work in a convention center where Eckankar held its big annual conferences. Every year, hundreds of people from all over the world would roll in wearing these royal blue badges, walking around with a super serene, almost otherworldly calm, like they knew something the rest of us weren't in on. At first, I honestly thought it was just another spiritual retreat, meditation, good vibes, maybe some crystals and sage. But then I started noticing something. The way they talked about their leader and how literally everything revolved around the living Eckmaster. That's when I started digging. What even is Eckankar? Where does it come from? And why do so many people, including former members, straight up call it a cult? Eckankar popped up in the late 1960s, right when the New Age movement was spreading and everyone was obsessed with enlightenment, out-of-body experiences, and secret cosmic knowledge. Its founder, Paul Twitchell, was a Kentucky-born writer who claimed he had been trained by divine beings from higher dimensions. Before he created Eckankar, he was actually involved with Scientology in the late 1950s, recruiting, teaching classes, auditing people, and writing for their publications. He eventually broke away from L. Ron Hubbard, and by the mid-60s he launched Eckankar as a totally separate movement. Hubbard later called Twitchell a suppressive person, which basically cemented his banishment. Twitchell claimed he had unlocked the secret of soul travel, essentially leaving your body at will and cruising through other planes of existence. He packaged it all into a system he called Eckankar, the ancient science of soul travel. He declared himself the latest in a supposedly ancient line of divine messengers he called the living Eckmaster lineage. He said it went back thousands of years, except none of those earlier masters have ever been shown to exist. But that didn't matter. The movement grew fast. When Twitchell died in 1971, leadership went to Darwin Gross and later to Harold Klemp, who served as the living Eckmaster from 1981 until he formally named his successor in October 2025. In total, he held the role for roughly 44 years. His successor, Doug Kunan, was introduced as the new Mahanta, the living Eckmaster, during the October 2025 Worldwide Soul Adventure Seminar. The headquarters operate out of Minnesota, and they even have multiple temples, a publishing house, and a spiritual university. So what do they actually believe? At its core, Eckankar teaches that you are soul, a spark of divine light and sound temporarily inhabiting a human body. The whole point is to reconnect with God by aligning yourself with the Ek, basically their version of the Holy Spirit. Members practice something called the Hugh chant, repeating the word Hugh to tap into divine consciousness.
This word Hugh is the ancient name for God, a love song to God. Soul has heard and is yearning to return home to God.
They say it opens spiritual awareness and lets the soul travel beyond the physical world. Eckankar also teaches about multiple spiritual planes, past life karma, and something called dream travel, where followers claim they can meet other souls, or even the living Eckmaster in their dreams. On the surface, it sounds harmless, but the structure underneath tells a completely different story. Every religion has a hierarchy, but Eckankar takes it to a new level. At the very top sits the living Eckmaster, believed to be the direct representative of God on Earth. He is not just a teacher, he's viewed as a literal spiritual savior. Followers are told to visualize him, talk to him telepathically, and treat everything he says as divine truth. Members are ranked into levels of spiritual initiation, and the higher you go, the closer you're supposedly getting to enlightenment. It's very much like Scientology. Scientology has the bridge to total freedom, full of courses, auditing sessions, and super secret levels that cost thousands. Eckankar has the same vibe. The higher levels require years of obedience, participation, and plenty of donations. It's basically the same business model with a new age filter. When I worked at the convention center, I saw how deep that devotion ran. The air was thick with incense, and massive portraits of Harold Klemp were everywhere. But what hit me most wasn't their happiness, it was their reverence. It felt like being at a concert where the headliner was invisible, but all-powerful. Every conversation looped back to the master. It didn't feel like a spiritual community, it felt like worshiping a guy. Many critics call Eckankar a cult because of its ultra-centralized leadership, its demands for absolute devotion to the living master, and its whole universe of unverifiable spiritual claims marketed as literal truth. Former members say the group isolates followers by insisting Eckankar is the only true path to spiritual freedom, while discouraging any questions about its history, especially Twitchell's involvement with other spiritual movements and the plagiarism accusations. They describe a pattern of secrecy, tightly controlled narratives, and intense loyalty expectations that match what you see in other high-control groups, especially when you look at where Eckankar actually came from. One of the biggest plot twists showed up in the 1970s, when a religion scholar named David C. Lane started digging into Twitchell's writings. Lane wasn't some bitter ex-member, he was just doing academic research, and what he uncovered was damning. Twitchell had copied his so-called revelations from a range of older spiritual teachings. Lane published his findings, and that's when things got sketchy. Instead of publicly addressing the evidence, someone broke into Lane's house and stole only the research tied to Eckankar. Nothing else was touched. Not valuables, not electronics, just the Eckankar files. Lane has said the whole thing felt way too targeted, like a warning that he was digging where he wasn't supposed to.
This is called the making of a spiritual movement.
I have to admit it's caused quite a controversy.
Why the controversy? What do you do in this book that everybody's so upset about?
The founder of this particular movement, what he tried to do was lie about his past.
Are you talking about a particular cult now?
Right. It's called Eckankar, and it was founded in San Diego, and it's well known throughout the United States and throughout the world. The founder was Paul Twitchell. And what he tried to do is hide his past. And every book, almost every book this person wrote was plagiarized. Texts that were written in France in 1938 and 39. This area, I happen to have the books in my library. You take the book out, the new 67 edition of Paul Twitchell's Far Country, and you take out a book, Path of the Masters by Julian Johnson in 1939, not a line has been changed.
Copied it exactly.
Word for word. And the people in the group don't know this.
So how do you feel about this? They're burglarizing your house and they're doing things. They obviously wanted some of your notes or records.
It's incredible. It was midday. I was teaching at the university, and I come back and the whole place is totally ransacked. I mean, bookshelves thrown over, beds upturned, everything's gone. And only thing they took were my research files. Every article I'd written, and they left this very incriminating note, said no more.
No one was ever arrested, but the timing and precision of the theft basically spoke for itself. Ironically, trying to silence him only amplified the truth. Lane's work spread, and other academics confirmed the same copied passages. The harder Eckankar tried to bury its origins, the more obvious the cracks became. While current followers see Eckankar as a legitimate spiritual path, these issues are exactly why so many outsiders and former members call Eckankar a cult. When I worked at the convention center, I saw kids, some very young, being taken into a hall and made to watch videos for hours. It felt like indoctrination. Behind its calm, love, and light facade, the history of Eckankar is full of controversy. Former members talk about manipulation and control. Some say they were warned that leaving Eckankar would destroy their spiritual progress or cause them to be reborn in lower worlds. Others describe crushing guilt for questioning leadership, being discouraged from reading criticism, and being told that doubt itself is bad karma. These are high control group tactics, when thinking for yourself becomes a flaw. So why do people even join groups like Eckankar in the first place? Because most people aren't out here looking to be controlled. They're looking for meaning. Eckankar sells the idea of direct divine experience not through pastors or rituals, but through your own consciousness. It tells people they are soul, eternal, limitless, and powerful. And that hits deep, especially if you've been turned off by mainstream religion. Once you're inside, that freedom slowly turns into dependency. The whole focus shifts from self-discovery to full devotion to the living Eckmaster. Instead of finding truth within yourself, you're told to depend on him for spiritual guidance, emotional support, and even everyday life decisions. Mix that level of devotion with an organization built on loyalty, hierarchy, and money, and suddenly the vibe stops being spirituality and starts looking a lot like control. From the outside, Eckankar markets itself as peaceful and super open. You'll see it in bookstores, wellness fairs, and even kids' programs. Working in the business center at the convention center, I helped attendees ship Eckankar books. I had to ask the declared value of each box, and sometimes a small box added up to over $1,000. Most of the people shipping them were from all over the world, and it was honestly heartbreaking to see how much emotional and financial influence the movement had over them. The Hue videos online look harmless and soothing, just a simple meditation. But behind the aesthetic is a system built to keep members loyal, isolated, and spiritually dependent. Even their materials warn followers not to discuss spiritual experiences with outsiders, because outsiders won't understand. And that's another major cult red flag, the us versus them mentality. As a whole, Eckankar looks a lot like other New Age movements from the 20th century, Eastern mysticism blended with Western self-help, repackaged as its own unique path. It wasn't born from ancient tradition. It was created in the 1960s. The difference is that Eckankar is still quietly operating today, with tens of thousands of members holding conferences, publishing books, and recruiting people who have no idea what they're stepping into. What began as a niche spiritual experiment has evolved into a global organization with deep cultural roots and a loyal following. Working at that convention center gave me a strangely front-row view into Eckankar. I remember seeing people of all ages and backgrounds, smiling, chanting the Hue, waiting in long lines just to get close to a picture of Harold Klemp. They weren't scary or rude. Most were incredibly kind, but they spoke in this oddly scripted way, almost robotic, as if their individuality had been removed and placed back into their bodies. The devotion felt rehearsed, like they traded their own identity for a sense of belonging. And that's the real magic trick of groups like Eckankar. They don't take your money first. They take your sense of direction. They convince you that enlightenment exists, but only through them. The truth is, spiritual growth doesn't need a master, a hierarchy, or a secret organization. It doesn't come from chanting one word or following one man. It comes from curiosity, questioning, and listening to your own inner voice, not someone else's. So the next time you see a group promising total enlightenment, ask yourself who actually benefits. Because with Eckankar, it definitely isn't the followers. What I saw at those conferences wasn't spirituality. It was submission dressed up as enlightenment. And once you've seen it up close, you can't unsee it. Thanks for watching. Let me know which case you want me to cover next. And remember to stay curious, stay safe, and stay skeptical.